We are here once again with Bill Miller, who is the CEO of the American Gaming Association. Bill, welcome back.
Frank, it's great to be with you guys. I'm happy to be back on the Fantini show.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you here on the Fantini show. Before we begin, we're going to talk about your priorities for 2021 that you recently released. Before we begin, two things. One, we have a new president, a new administration in Washington that maybe is a little bit more gaming friendly, perhaps. Just give us your take on that.
Well, first, again, thank you for having me on today. I think about, my 2 years as CEO at the American Gaming Association. Year one was kind of, all the momentum and enthusiasm that followed the Supreme Court's decision around opening up sports betting around the country. And year two really was about how we navigate through an unprecedented kind of, economic hardship for all of our industry. And so, as you talk about, we're changing president, we're changing president, Congress, et cetera. It just makes me reflect on my 2 years, and it was really the tale of 2 years, really, an incredibly exciting period of time of record growth, record support, and then how do we survive? And so Congress and the administration, the previous, which was supportive, the makeup of the Congress was supportive of our industry, and this, and President Biden, and a closely divided House and Senate, I think will be supportive and helpful to us as an industry on a going forward basis.
One thing is the Department of Justice under President Trump had a different interpretation of the 1961 Wire Act than the preceding administration in which Joe Biden was vice president.
Yeah.
How do you think that issue now is one that's behind the industry now that we have President Biden?
I'm hopeful that, look, businesses, whether it's the gaming industry or any other industry, crave certainty. And I think that reinterpretation of the Wire Act, which actually happened on my first day coming into the American Gaming Association, it created a level of uncertainty for the industry. And that was when we were in high water. We were at a high water mark. And so, states were beginning that process of introducing legislation and creating mobile platforms for sports betting and iGaming and those sorts of things. And that reinterpretation created some degree of uncertainty. And wouldn't say that it had a great chilling effect on the legislatures, because they all, or not all of them, but most of them came around and said, you know what, as long as we keep this within our state borders, we're going to be okay. And so, now we're 25 states plus the District of Columbia that are operational. Not all of them are mobile, but that mobility question was called into question, if you will, by that reinterpretation. And so my view is, courts have decided, appeals courts have decided, and it is we don't know for certain with the new Attorney General what his priorities are going to be. But I think that there is more certainty today around what we can and can't do. And my belief is that the new administration is not going to make defending the reinterpretation of the Wire Act a priority.
All right, I should think so. Okay, you had 4 major points that are priorities for the year 2021, in which that you released recently. And maybe we could just go through them. The first one was securing additional COVID and economic relief for the industry.
Well, I think that it's important to remember that the industry has, through relief efforts in the past, always been discriminated against, as other industries were supported by governmental stimulus activities, whether it was 2008, 2009 recession, Superstorm Sandy, Katrina. In every one of those cases where there was economic relief given, the gaming industry was carved out, and in my opinion, unfairly. And so in the CARES Act, this past year, we gained, I think, an important breakthrough. And that important breakthrough is a recognition by legislators at the federal level that our industry is really important in the 44 or 45 states in which we operate, that in the communities in which we operate, really important, and that we should be treated the same as everybody else. And so going forward, and so we were exceptionally proud of that we were treated like that. Our industry, is among the hardest hit of any industry during this, pandemic, and all 995 casinos across America all shut down, commercial, tribal. The industry ground to a halt necessarily because of health reasons and mandates. But now, as we're kind of climbing out of the rubble, number one, we were able to get federal support, and we really pushed hard to ensure that we were able to harness the congressional champions that, in a way, have been, maybe for too long, simply reliant on the Nevada delegation, and that now that we're in all of these other states, we can draw upon a much greater number of legislators who will step up and champion our efforts. And so where we are today, and there was just this morning, the president's COVID relief budget blueprint was passed. I think it was 5 o'clock this morning, and so our efforts now turn to continuing to gain whatever we can to ensure the safe and healthy reopening of the industry, and that includes using a bipartisan group of legislators who recognize and understand the industry, and trying to do everything that we can to save gaming jobs and alleviate costs as we're trying to reopen the industry.
Right. Now, I think you've touched upon your second point already, which was developing champions. One of my observations, and I've been around long enough now, that if in the earlier years, when casinos were just being legalized in various states throughout the country, laws were written by legislators almost in a suspicious sort of nature. You had to meet certain requirements because they were fearful of what might happen, and gaming wasn't necessarily popular among the general public, at least a portion of it. And now it's an established industry. So now the legislative attitude almost seems to have flipped, because now there are jobs to protect, there's tax dollars to protect, there's an industry to protect. So it's been an interesting transition to see.
Yeah, and I think you're right on, and that is that legislators, I think less so at the state level, but at the federal level, because by and large our industry is regulated, taxed, and much more. There is a much greater interface between our industry and state legislators and regulators, that sometimes the Congress has kind of some outdated stereotypical views of the industry, because they don't work on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis with our industry. And so, unfortunately or fortunately, we reestablished and built back the Congressional Gaming Caucus with the belief that we want these legislators to understand what we mean in these communities, and that to the degree that there is outdated views of our industry, we want to correct that, because we think that correcting that puts us in the right position in order to gain support for the industry when we need it, and we certainly needed it last year.
Your third top priority is blocking harmful policies and advancing specific reforms to enhance industry competitiveness. What are some of those policies you want to block and some of those reforms you'd like to enact?
Well, I think first and foremost is we want to make sure that we're treated the same as any other industry, and we saw that breakthrough last year. We want that obviously to continue, but then there are some other things that when you are trying to reopen, you want to do some things that help the industry thrive. And look, the slot tax threshold issue, which hasn't been changed in decades, is one that we've been working on, and I think that we're gaining some momentum there in the omnibus appropriations bill that was passed this past December. It directed Treasury to take a look at that and the feasibility of raising that threshold, and so the Treasury Department under Secretary Yellen, they're still staffing up, and so we're going to have to kind of go back in there and reintroduce the issue to some senior Treasury staff. But they were directed by that legislation to work on that and try and come back to the Congress, in reasonably short order. And we hope that that allows us to push forward on that. I think that some of the other things are how we get business travel back in. And one of the amendments that we've been working on in the budget that just passed was a Senator Cortez Masto amendment that I think will allow us to take a shot within this budget reconciliation for additional support for conferences, trade shows, conventions, and business travel. And I think that if you talk to people, people that cover our industry, people that cover the travel and leisure space in general, I think that they all kind of concede a number of things. And number one is that, if you can drive to a property, those properties are coming back faster. And notwithstanding the more recent spike in the virus, those are the places, our regional properties have been coming back. And it's when for the individual traveler, getting on an airplane, staying in a hotel, going to a resort destination, someplace like Las Vegas or Atlantic City or other places, that's been the challenge. And as we continue to, put vaccines in Americans, a million three every day, we're going to see the level of confidence come back for, travel. And then the next piece is, what can we do to stimulate business travel that is such a critical component to Las Vegas? And that's a thing that we are going to be working very hard with our partners. And the great part about that is the convention and trade show business doesn't have a partisan element to it. We can look at a bipartisan constellation of senators from places like Florida or California, where you've got San Francisco or Orlando or Chicago or New York City, and certainly Las Vegas and Dallas, and say, these are all places that host a lot of conventions, a lot of trade shows. And then you can throw a number of other cities in that space. I think we'll be able to draw on an important group of bipartisan legislators for support to really help accelerate the return to business travel and conventions, trade shows, and conferences.
Okay, great. Your final priority is probably more of an internal one, using proprietary research and strategic communications to assure that the industry's views are heard.
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the things I found when I came to this job is that I didn't have as strong an appreciation for the great research work that our research team does, and whether it be the work that we did in creating kind of the, doing survey work, doing focus group work on what do customers need to feel safe and in order to return back safely. And we believe that helped our members, help guide them in their reopening plans, and then trying to better understand and track the openings and reopenings and what that meant. I think has really helped us help our members better understand what are the types of things that customers need. And then certainly that research helps inform those really important audiences that we have up on Capitol Hill and in other places about what the AGA, our members, mean in the communities in which they operate. And that, that is kind of a virtuous cycle that creates, information that helps us operationalize what we do, but then also really helps inform those legislators who are so critically important to supporting and defending our industry.
Okay. Well, this has been a great overview. I know that on the website, you go into these 4 points in more detail. If somebody wanted to go there, what's the address?
www.americangaming.org.
Okay. Final question. In a few days, we're going to be getting a State of the Union address from the president. If you were to give a State of the Industry address, how would you sum it up?
Resilient and committed. I think that what we saw during an unprecedented shutdown of our industry, we saw our industry act in a way that the entire country got to see. They got to see our properties become, testing facilities. They got to see our companies, donating tons and tons of food to food banks. They got to see our, the commitment that we have to our employees in paying them long after the, facilities were shut down. And that gaming has always been a really an importantly responsible community partner, whether it be in, where we've always seen it in, the Gulf Coast and hurricanes and things like that, where, our industry is the first to kind of, raise their hand and step in to help recover, despite being an industry that, with probably very few exceptions, was hurt harder than any other industry. We got a chance to see the resilience of the industry and the commitment that the industry has to the people. And that's one of the things that is most special about being in my job, because I get to see that, I get to experience, I get to talk to our members, I get to talk to local state legislators, I get to talk to mayors and people that are part of the social networks of, community food banks and the like. And those are a way for us to really show that important role that we play in the communities. And so it's resilience, it is compassion, and it's toughness. I mean, we are coming out of this. We are going to probably continue to see, Q1 and Q2 be, challenging, but I'm incredibly bullish on the industry because, number one, we weathered this storm and we all weathered it together. I think that the association, the members within the association, they really came together and fought for and pushed for the things that really united us instead of dividing us. It made the organization a much more effective organization, and the industry is much better because of that. And I look at the next year and the coming years as probably the most exciting years for the industry.
Great summation. Bill, as always, thank you for your insights.
Yeah. Well, Frank, again, always a pleasure to be on, and be well.
Good, thanks. You too. Bye-bye.